You guys, Jeff Wittek is sitting down with Casey Neistat to address what he has had to say about his David Dobrik documentary. If you guys remember, Casey Neistat did make a documentary on David Dobrik that he has not wanted to put out for the public. He's admitted that he is protecting David by doing this, and he's continued to praise David online. And Jeff wanted to sit down with him and confront him about all the things that he has had to say that have been pissing him off. Casey is friendly with Jeff, yet he has all these nice things to say about David, is admitting to protecting him, and it is just blowing the public's mind. In November, Casey Neistat sat down for an interview where he talked about what happened to his David Dobrik documentary. It premiered at the film festival South by Southwest back in 2022, and then nothing ever happened with it. In the interview, Casey admitted that he's protecting David in a way by not releasing it to the public. He previously talked about how he hasn't been able to sell the documentary to a streamer, and he doesn't want to put it on his own YouTube channel as he doesn't want to be the one responsible for telling the story. He felt like it would be drama, and he didn't want to be a part of any sort of exposing David Dobrik. But in this recent interview that he did, he was doing things like praising David in his career, and people did not like that.
To this day, notwithstanding the problematic stuff, the problematic content that he made, I think he is the greatest comedian that YouTube has ever had. David is just, the comedic timing, everything about his videos are unique, and to this day, nothing's even come close to replicating them.
Though he was still calling out David for things he did wrong, he did say these nice things and also seemed hurt by the fact that their friendship did fall out because of everything. People were very upset with what Casey said in this interview, especially Jeff, and he straight up called him out for what he said on his podcast, especially since Jeff and Casey are friends. So of course he was hurt by these words. And Jeff confronted Casey about all of this on his podcast this week in an episode titled Jeff Wittek Confronts Casey Neistat's True Feelings About David. In the podcast, Jeff straight up told him that he was upset by some of the praise that he gave David, and Casey was trying to explain himself a bit.
That's pissed me off the most when he said he was the funniest.
And
that's you out of all things, my eye, all the lawsuit, all this. What about Bo Burnham, all these other guys?
So let's
take that back.
So when you first texted me and you were upset, I was like, because I feel like I felt like when you sent me that text, I was like, wait, I've said a version of that probably 10 different times on 10 different podcasts.
Yeah.
What is Jeff so upset about? Maybe he didn't actually watch. And then I went back and watched it, and I was like, no, totally fair. Like, I totally see where you're coming from. It's totally fair. So let me try to reiterate for your audience, in case they haven't seen it, like what I feel I said, and then tell me how you heard it, because like you're upset, and I totally respect that. I think it's fair.
Also, he don't give a about you. He don't even answer your texts. So why are you still sticking up for him?
Well, one, I'm not. I don't stick up for David at all.
That episode, you were sticking up for him.
No,
unless it was something that you didn't want to admit, and you were trying to
no.
around the question of why you're not selling the piece.
I'm a wide open book, Jeff.
Casey went on to basically say that he was complimenting the David before everything dark came out about him, and tried to say that the praise was in reference to that part of his career.
About like the flattery of David, like I'm referring to a time when he was sort of like, when YouTube was David.
He was charismatic and a good editor.
Yeah, but he also you were on that tour with us when like we ran around and I was like doing all that filming.
Best time of my life, yeah.
And I'd never seen an audience, especially having experienced a version of that myself. Mm-hmm. I'd never seen an audience that looked to a creator the way they looked at Dave.
Now, the big thing about this documentary is that David does not do himself any favors. He is not taking accountability like he should be. And the whole reason why we even really knew that a documentary was going to be premiering at South by Southwest in 2022 was because of Jeff. Casey did not do any promo for this movie. He did like one interview at South by Southwest and that was it. But it seemed like he did not want anybody to know that he had made this movie. Jeff was the one that told us that this was coming out because he then decided that he was going to be suing David because he saw this documentary interview that David did. In the documentary, Casey basically documented David's entire career. So he interviewed him all throughout his career. After the Insider article came out about David and after the accident with Jeff happened, David David was re-interviewed by Casey at the end of the documentary. And David does not look very good. And the public has been very curious as to what David said because a lot of people did not get the chance to see this and they really want to know what David freaking said. And in this podcast where Jeff and Casey are sitting down, they talked about how David does not look good, and Casey reveals that it took him months to get David to even agree to that final interview in the documentary.
The last interview I got with him, he didn't want to give me. In fact, it took him 4 months to say yes to that interview. And the way I framed it to him was like, David, this movie's being made with or without you.
Yeah.
And what I'm here to do is give you the opportunity to speak on your behalf. The same way that you and I sat down 5 different times so you could make sure, I wanted to really make sure you were sharing what you wanted to share.
Yeah.
I said to him, like, take your time. And if I ask you a question you don't know the answer to, just tell me, and I'll sit here for 10 minutes until you're ready to answer it. Because this is the last time.
PR team there to coach him.
This is the last time you're going to. What I didn't want is for him to come back and be like, I don't know what I said. I wasn't thinking about it. I wanted to make sure he had to own what he said.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give him the time, give him the flexibility. And it was what he said in that interview that was really hard.
Jeff then asks Casey something people have speculated on, which is, does David have something on him that is making him not want to put this out?
Does he have some dirt on you? Does he have some naked pictures of you? Or you
he does have
fishnet stockings?
Yeah,
Did he pay you
there's
off?
a lot of that. There's a lot of that.
What? How do you answer
stockings.
those questions from the
No,
internet?
because it's.
Does he have anything on you to not post it? Is there like a contract that he needs to sign?
I think an important distinction. There's nothing revealed in my movie that isn't public information. There's no question.
There's nothing new?
There's nothing new. You've seen it. I think what's important is that I think my movie does a good job of telling the totality of the situation.
Yeah.
From the beginning till the end.
I deleted mine because it wasn't true. So I'm working on a piece where it's not on him, it's about me.
Throughout the interview, Jeff kept telling Casey he was still drinking the Kool-Aid, aka he was still riding for David, and Casey kept being like, no, like, where are you getting this idea from? To which Jeff then says why he thinks that, and honestly why everyone online pretty much also thinks that. And it's because of that last podcast that he did where he's basically saying that one of the reasons why he might not be releasing this documentary is to protect David. And Casey flat out denies saying this, which Jeff, of course, ran back the clip for us because he was going to clock the fact that Casey was trying to deny saying this.
You not releasing the doc for the sole purpose that you feel the need to protect.
Yeah, I never said that, Jeff. That's a total mischaracterization. And I still don't know why I don't put it out there. I think it's because maybe some part of me, as much as I'm ashamed to admit it, is because I still like very deeply love and care for David. And maybe it's about protecting him from himself.
Thank goodness Jeff put the clip in and also in person stood his ground to Casey, because it's crazy that he was trying to deny what he actually said. Casey then goes on to say that the reason the movie is not out is because it did not get distribution for the film, meaning it was not sold to an HBO Max, a Hulu, Netflix, Prime, or something of the sort.
You said that in the...
That's part of it. And it's a nuanced, like, the hard part of the internet is being honest and being nuanced.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to hear it. They want to take absolutes
like
that. And that's not an absolute. That's not an absolute. The reason why the movie, people have
maybe you said you sort of, maybe you feel the need. Maybe you,
no,
you don't know.
I'll say it to you now as I said it to him, almost verbatim. But the reason why the movie's not out right now, because we didn't get distribution. And we didn't get distribution for 100 reasons. Most of them, and it sucks, but we didn't get distribution. And to underscore the effort with which I put into distribution, like, we premiered at the biggest film festival in North America. Mm-hmm. Like, it played 6 times at that film festival.
Yeah.
It was reviewed by every industry magazine, every industry website out there. I think we had 25 reviews, most of them positive, most of them negative on David. But we did everything we could to get that movie out there. I hired a public relations company to get us lots of press and a sales company to sell the movie. And another important distinction here is that, like, I had myriad opportunity to take on funding for this movie. I never did. Every aspect of this movie was paid out of my pocket.
Yeah, I know.
And that was something I did to protect the integrity of the film because I never wanted to answer to anyone.
Of course.
So why isn't the movie out there today? It's because we didn't get distribution. And that's frustrating for me.
Which he had previously talked about this with Logan Paul on Impulsive, that the film did not get distribution and it was this whole situation and he didn't want to put it on his own YouTube channel. But in this interview he recently did, he was saying that he was protecting David and that's why it wasn't out. Casey then talks about why the film is not on YouTube and why he stands by not putting it on that platform.
I think when people consume on YouTube, it's done with a certain purview that would have negatively impacted how people view this movie. They would have seen it as gossip. They would have seen it as another sort of YouTube-y, gossipy thing instead of what it was, which I think and maybe this is giving myself too much credit, but I think that movie captures a really important moment in YouTube history, which is when these runaway creators would take their desire for sensationalism to an inevitable and wildly dangerous end. In David's case, almost killing someone, and then a young woman being assaulted. And I still believe this, that the vehicle with which people see that through should feel more formal than my YouTube channel.
Casey then went on to talk about Jeff saying that Casey was protecting David, and just wanted to talk a little further about what he said about David in the previous interview and why in the last 3 years since the film has been done, why he doesn't want to just do something with it.
And
Jeff, you didn't let me finish. Because you brought up what I said about protecting David.
Go ahead.
I want to answer your question.
Yeah.
And I preface all of this by saying it's nuance, and that's why people don't like nuance on the internet, because they want to say bad or good. They don't want to understand the complexity. So I didn't get distribution, which sucks. And here we are 3 years later, and the movie's not out. And why isn't the movie out, Casey? I didn't get distribution. Totally honest answer. Why haven't you put it out in the 3 years since? That's where it gets more complicated. And this is where I start to look at myself and think like, okay, like, ABC News, CNN, Fox News, they didn't buy this. Hulu didn't buy this. Netflix didn't buy this. But that's not the end. You and I both know that's not the end. There are other ways to get this out there. Why didn't I put that extra effort in? And this is where, like, if I'm honest with myself, it's like, there's definitely a part of it, which is like, that was such a painful experience making that. That is not making the movie that I wanted to make. And when I say painful, I should have picked a different word, because my face, believe it or not, this is what my face normally looks like. I haven't had a single surgery on it. This is just what I wake up to every day.
At least he clocked that he shouldn't have said it was painful that he didn't get to make the movie that he wanted. But it's also just like, Casey, truly, I don't see what the big deal is. Everyone is so upset at you for holding on to this thing. You might as well put it out just to save face at this rate. I mean, everything he's doing to hold on to this film is damaging him. And for what? It's not like David is friends with him. Literally everyone is begging to see the freaking documentary. He has nothing to lose. In fact, he is actually just losing by not putting it out. And it's only getting people more riled up the way that he keeps talking about not putting it out and his reasons why. It's just not making sense to people. And the fact that he had previously made a comment about having these important stories to tell and still holding on to it.
But I also feel responsibility to the victim, who, I spoke with off the record and showed her the movie before a single person saw it, to get her blessing and understanding. And I think that she was very generous in letting me share her story, and I didn't follow through with that. So I'm extremely conflicted about it.
Like, it's so upsetting, truly. But I did get the chance to see the film when it premiered at South by Southwest, and at this rate, I should have freaking recorded the thing so I could retell it to you guys better. But I did think it was going to be coming out, but these were my exact notes while I was watching it. In the documentary, Jeff says David told him to hop back on the rope one more time. David then was interviewed, and he said he got the shot already. He was only going to use a 3-second clip of them wakeboarding, but Jeff didn't think they got the shot, so Jeff was like, let's do something more exciting, and he said he's always down for that. Jeff said in an interview that he doesn't think David hasn't been the same since, and it has to do with how they covered the whole accident up. Jeff said 10 out of 10 people would have sued him. David was asked if he feels responsible, and he said, yeah. David in his interview says he doesn't think The Insider was fair. He said it was written because the place wanted clicks. It wasn't written because the company is going and looking after the victim. He says he doesn't want to respond and feed the fire. He says he's always wanted to be this happy person that people look to for fun, and now he's stained and he's the villain. He said that's not what he wants. He said he's going to try to do good. So that's what I wrote down in reference to what David had to say in the interviews at the end of the documentary. But going back to Casey and Jeff in this podcast that they were doing, Casey talked a little bit more about why he doesn't think that he should be the one to tell the story and this feeling of guilt that he has.
Why isn't it out? And it's like, maybe there is some part that's like, I don't want to have to confront this story. Maybe there's some part of me that feels guilty, because the reason why I had that access is because I was their friends. I was David's friend. And he gave me all this access. And then in the end, I used it to make a movie that told the truth that he didn't want out there. That's fucked up. But like, I'm just being honest. Like, there's some tiny bit of doubt in me that thinks maybe the reason why I'm not more aggressive in getting this out there is because of that. Is that me protecting him? If you see it that way, then there's nothing I can do.
I'm just going off words that I actually heard.
Sure. But I'm telling you as I told it in that interview, which is like, there is certainly a level of doubt in me that's like, maybe I am. Maybe that I am protecting him, and that's fucked up. I shouldn't be like that.
Do you feel guilt towards the girl?
Not just the girl. I feel guilt towards the victim, and she's a real victim.
Yeah.
I feel guilt towards you because
I don't give a
you
fuck.
and I-
It seems like Casey is trying to say that though him and David aren't on talking terms, the only reason he was able to make the documentary was because they were once on talking terms and they were once friends. And he would feel bad putting all of this out. But I mean, David didn't care about his friend's safety and well-being. So Casey, let's just tell the story, please. Like, you chose journalistic integrity once you found out who David really was. You finished the documentary. You aired it publicly once before. Come on. Like, if you were gonna feel guilty, you would have just not put it out at all, or you just would have not told the full story, but you did, and the damage is done, and people know that you have this. David is probably already upset that people have seen it and that they know about this documentary, so it's like, why not put it out? But Casey does kind of end up like admitting maybe he is saying a little that he's like protecting him.
Like, I spent 3 years on that. 2 of those years were making a movie I was really excited about. One of those years was making a movie I hated.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a movie about assault. I don't want to make a movie about my friend getting
Make a movie about how far creators and people
No, I get
on
it.
social
But
media
point
push
is,
it to.
I hear you, Jeff. The point is, I spent 3 years of my life on this, untold amounts of money on this. When I finished it, I was happy that it was done, and I was happy with where it was, and I shared it with the world. And it was very disappointing to not get distribution. It was really disappointing.
As time has passed, though, the movie is not relevant anymore. I'm gonna say that because it does end with Jeff and David still being friends, because at the time that Casey finished this movie, they were friends. There was no lawsuit. So Casey says it would need to be changed if he were to share this, but honestly, I don't see this happening. Even though Jeff says that he feels like the documentary is salvageable, Casey just doesn't want to see it through. It like doesn't seem like he wants to get up and finish this movie or re-edit the movie. He already is upset that he didn't get to make this happy movie that he wanted, and that, you know, it did end up telling this dark story of this YouTuber's downfall. So as much as people want Casey to finish it out, he just doesn't seem up for the project. He literally admits that he should, but he just doesn't wanna, which is obviously a very privileged position for him because the stories in this story would remain untold, and that's just sad. The whole thing just isn't a good look for Casey, but he knows that, and I guess it's his choice if he lives with that or not, but I guess only time will tell. People in the comments obviously aren't happy with him praising Jeff for standing his ground and just coming for Casey, especially when he wasn't saying that he was protecting David. I also just feel like if Casey really did not want to put this out and he didn't want drama and he didn't want to be messy, he should have just said from the beginning that, hey, this movie, it's not relevant anymore. The ending is not accurate because David and Jeff are no longer friends, so I'm not going to be putting it out because it's not the right movie. But because he's gone around and talked so much about this movie and praised David, and he's just said all of this stuff, it does not make him look good at all. In fact, it's made people want the movie even more, and they're just frustrated with how Casey has handled this whole thing. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.